I promise you, the last thing I wanted to do was find the one true religion. But unfortunately, I did.
Hello YouTube and welcome to Classically Weird, where we explore the weird world of cinema. My name's Headmaster Howard and I'm going to be your host for today's episode, and joining me as always is my lovely wife and partner in this endeavor, Miss Ragana Ray.
Hello my fellow weird, mystical, and enthusiasts.
So today's journey is one through Heretic. Heretic comes to us from Studio A24. Ragana and I are actually really big fans of A24's work. For the most part. There's been a few questionable ones along the way. But in general, Ragana and I are huge fans of A24's work.
We do get quite excited when another A24 comes out. Whenever we've seen another one release. So yeah, this was another one to be excited about.
It definitely was. Now, this film is brought to us by Scott Beck and Brian Woods. They were the directors of this film, also the writers and producers, but they were also the writers and executive producers of A Quiet Place.
Oh man, yeah, Quiet Space is one that got to me, but that's really interesting, and those are two totally different realms of the horror genre. You know, man, both of these kind of played mind tricks on me. Anyways,
she would never survive A Quiet Place.
I wouldn't. My cat and I would be gone. We would. And I think that's what bothers me so much about The Quiet Place is like I have no defenses against it. Like I can watch every other horror movie and figure out a way to survive. I have not figured out a way to survive Quiet Space. Quiet Place, sorry.
Don't worry guys, we're going to have a full breakdown on A Quiet Place coming up at some point soon. I will make her sit back through it.
And there's multiples now too.
There are multiples.
I'm so uncomfortable.
Yep.
Okay.
This film does star Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, and Chloe East. Something that I really enjoyed about this film is Hugh Grant in this role had just a beautiful dark charisma about him. You're used to seeing him in like romantic comedies, that kind of stuff where he's the boy next door kind of thing, and he's the love interest, he's kind of the goofy guy. But seeing him in a role like this just completely breaks that mold for him. He really did have a presence about him, and if you remember, there were a couple times while we were watching this where I was like, man, if he was one of my college professors, I would totally sign up for his class. I think had he not taken the situation he did to the extreme that he did with the murder, the kidnapping, that kind of thing.
Holding women hostage.
Exactly, right? Had he not done all of that, he would make a phenomenal university professor, and I would love to sit down in his class and just kind of debate, right?
With him.
Kind of go through the theology discussion with him. Also, Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East, fun fact about them, they were actually both Mormon growing up. So they brought a great representation of that religion and that culture to this film, and kind of a realism into the life of a Mormon missionary, because they were exposed to it. They know it.
Well, I would agree. I was very excited when I saw that an A24 film has Hugh Grant, and Hugh Grant as portrayed as the darker side of him, and really tapping in, and he aesthetically, mentally really embraced that kind of psychotic role, and it was interesting to watch. And I like that with the roles with the sisters having been a part of the Mormon community, they also showed that one sister in the movie grew up in the Mormon faith, had multiple siblings, mom and dad were Mormon, whereas the other sister came into the Mormon faith years later in life. So you also had the duality in their thought processes and how they dealt with situations, because they had come up with different upbringing, but also had the same faith now.
So, my love, you're bringing up the duality between the two girls and how they are different but similar in some ways. I do have a theory around that. I think that the directors did that intentionally so that you kind of see the way that people in a kind of weaker standing, a weaker position when dealing with a kind of a stronger force, stronger presence, kind of deal with that. If you think about it, Sister Barnes is kind of the confrontational role. And you do see some people do this from time to time. Kind of, let's confront this, let's take it down. And you see her even say that during the movie, where she's like, no, you know what? We need to challenge him.
Mm-hmm.
Every assessment he tries to make, we may not be a physical threat, but we can be an intellectual one.
Yep.
So we need to challenge every premise that he brings forward. So that's a really good kind of encapsulation of her role, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
Then on the other hand, you have Sister Paxton, who in a way is kind of represents the more kind of meek way. It's just, she just placates him.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, you know what? This is what he wants. Let's give him what he wants. He'll leave us alone. He'll let us go. And you do see that in the scene where they're choosing the doors. She almost specifically says that. She's like, well, no. He wants us to go through here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go through here.
Mm-hmm.
It can kind of come off as naive in a way. Like if you just look at it at surface level, she's young, she's naive, she doesn't want to confront him. She's scared of the confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it's a strategic choice. Let's give him what he wants, and then move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was intentional on the director's part to have them kind of be the two sides of the same coin.
I would agree. Even all the way down to their hair color. One's light, one's dark. They're like a complete opposites of each other, but also in the same kind of mold of their religion. Did that make sense? I don't know if that made sense.
So, my love, the plot of Heretic. Let's start diving into that. Generalized plot of the movie is you have two Mormon missionary girls who are on their way to go do their Mormon missionary duties. They're trying to inform people about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They show up at Hugh Grant's house, right? Knock on his door, and he's like, yeah, let's chat. Brings them inside. Kind of just sits down, and it comes out that he knows far more about the religions in general, than really they do. They start getting a weird vibe from it, and as the movie progresses, it gets slowly more and more strange. He's telling them that they have a choice. That's the whole underlying concept of this movie is choice, or what we believe is choice. He's trying to illustrate to us that choice is an illusion. The one true religion, in his view, is control.
I do want to bring up the definition of heretic, because the definition of it is really somebody that is in opposition of the church. With that gives you the whole broad picture of what the plot is going to be, that we have somebody that is against the church, that they are going to teach us something about the church, that they are not accepting of what it generally is. So you have, yes, these two Mormon girls that are coming in with this organized religion that is about to be challenged by somebody who thinks that they have found the one true religion and the illusion that we can make people believe whatever we really want them to. And he sets them up for different little tests throughout the movie to see what he can make them believe versus what they already came into the house believing. And it becomes a challenge of the mind on how challenge of the mind and the heart, because you're testing your faith as well, and getting out of a situation that you feel like you've been called to do, because what missionaries do, they go out in a calling of life to get other people to join their religion, and now you're really having to really go to battle with your own thoughts and religion. So that's the whole premise and plot. But he does take quite a few, it reminds me of like the Saw of
I can see that. I can see that actually. Yeah.
So it's the Saw had us going through all of the very torturous and gruesome physicalities for survival, Now we're looking at the mind survival and what is it that you have learned and how you can compete with somebody, as Sister Barnes makes in the movie, that we may not be able to challenge him physically, but we can challenge him mentally. And you could sense in him that he, on some level, enjoyed the challenges, wanted you to think through what was happening or why he introduced this. So what is your rebuttal to that? Also, while putting them in some very sadistic situations that,
Granted.
Was very uncomfortable. But even just the interactions with him, it was always very awkward. Being around him was awkward. I felt uncomfortable through the movie. So yeah, the whole thing in there is survival of your faith and your knowledge,
your mentality,
and your mentality.
Right.
What did you go through in life that put you in this situation? And if you look at even in people that are put in much more torturous, I don't want to say torturous situations, because they have those two survival, like, I'm going to fight against you, or I am going to just give in and be like, sure, this is what you want. Can I get out of here at the end? I just want to keep going forward. However, you did make a very valid point about if they had just stayed in the first room, they would have survived and not have to go through the torturous hell that they did.
That is the one plot issue that I found with this movie. Is yes, it's an interesting movie because they do proceed forward, but he constantly is telling them you have a choice. But he's only illustrating to them really that they have two choices in moving forward, while leaving out that they still have the choice to stay in the first room. Had they stayed in the first room, the elder of the Mormon church would have came to the door eventually. We see him come to the door eventually.
Spoiler alerts. They come into this house that looks like a house still out of what, the 60s?
Yeah, I'd say the 60s really probably. Yeah.
There's a massive storm that's happening. They keep thinking that they can't go backwards because he has locked the door, and for some reason the house just locks. It won't become unlocked until morning. Well, then by goddess, I'm going to sit right here until that door unlocks. But he entices them by saying, you can just go out this back door. Everything's okay. My wife is in the back. Everything is fine. So giving them that false sense of hope. But he also does tell them and warn them, I have a metal roof house. But when you're talking to young girls that don't understand that a metal roof house also means that you have no cell phone signal. You are now in this house without a life force beyond, but thinking all the way through, if we're not back by a certain time, somebody's going to come looking for us.
Yep.
So if I sit right here and just placate this person, eventually, like you said, the elder is going to show up and we're going to be out of here. But then you don't have a whole movie where you get to, meet the prophets and everything.
Right.
And you don't really get to test your strength and your mentality and all those other things if you just stayed in one space. So
right. I mean, it's kind of like the same thing that people tell you if you get lost in a maze, you just stay in one spot and you will be found.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Eventually, somebody's going to cross your path.
Somebody's going to come find you.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, my love. So now let's start talking through some of the other things, like the butterfly metaphor that's used throughout the movie. Yes. What did you think on that? Because I know you're very big on animal symbolism, things like that. When animals come up to our door, she's always looking up like, what does this mean?
I talk to the turtles, I talk to the squirrels, the birds, everything. Butterflies are generally about transformation. We start as a caterpillar and then we bloom into something else. Butterflies are also seen in the transformation between life and death, and are also, for many people, a symbolism of someone in the afterlife coming to visit you.
They actually talk about that in this
film.
Yeah, Sister Paxton brings that up, right?
Because she says that when she transforms, and I love her description of it in the aspect of, I can connect with it because I have a dear friend that passed away she's been gone a while. And before she passed, she had said that she would always return to us as a dragonfly. And there have been times when a dragonfly has come up and landed on me, and I knew in my heart that that is our friend that has passed on and is coming to say hello. So in the movie, Sister Paxton does talk about that when she passes over, that she would like to be a butterfly, and that she would land right on somebody's finger so that they knew that it was her. And I love that because I could connect with that in the spirituality aspect of what I have in my own personal experience.
And in the last scene with Sister Paxton, that actually does happen. She's out there in the snow. She escaped. Yeah, that's a debate for later. And the butterfly lands on her finger. Exactly what she said she would do.
And this is after that Sister Barnes does not make it out after doing, or maybe Sister Barnes does make it out, because were her wounds pretty much?
Her wounds were fatal.
Her wounds were pretty fatal.
Yeah.
Her wounds were pretty fatal. Yeah. And that digging in the arm thing that happened. I mean, I wouldn't want to live after.
Squeamish.
That was the only part in that whole movie. There's no real gore to this movie outside of that scene of when he's digging out her IUD.
Yeah, no real like body horror
type
in this.
Thing. Yes.
Right.
Yes. But that one scene, that made me.
Yeah, that made me squirm.
That made
too.
me squirm.
I was like,
yeah.
No, thank you.
Yep.
So something I want to talk about with the butterfly metaphor before we start moving on through the rest of the movie. There is the scene where they're coming into the chapel. And I did look it up afterwards in doing my research on this. That song is called A Butterfly Caught in the Rain.
Oh, very interesting, because they were the butterflies caught in the rain.
Exactly my point. So it was a great kind of symbolism of exactly what's going on here, because you have the storm raging outside. You have these two people about to go through a transformative process. So essentially the butterflies. I thought it was a really good kind of artistic choice on the part of the directors to put that in there. I thought it was fun.
That's a good one.
And that's a song from the 1930s.
Wow.
So something I want to talk about as far as the plot goes, and this takes place kind of around the second act of the film, is the concept of iterations. I do love that he does such a great job of explaining how what we see nowadays in culture, a lot of it is built upon what came before. He does a great job of explaining this with the board games. So you have the Landlord game, then Monopoly, then the funky editions of Monopoly.
Bob Ross. Everybody loves some Bob Ross. There's so many other Monopoly iterations. I mean, we have Boo-nopoly that we play in this house. So there were so many, but for it to be, but also that, I mean, if you kind of think about the Mormons, they are kind of the nicey ones with we paint happy little clouds.
It's a happy little tree.
It's a happy little tree. I like the board games, and could you go back and explain more about, because there was the Landlord game that was different, and that was showing the evolution of religion. So there was
So he used that as a metaphor to kind of reinforce his point about how Judaism came first, and that was the original, the OG, if you would, and then came Christianity, and then came Islam. And he kind of used the board games as a similar metaphor just to reinforce the point and show that that type of thing happens in more than one way. I think that he did a great job with this.
The writers did a great job with it. He delivered it very well. But also just the depiction of that you can build a shrine, or you can build a chapel within your own home and create your own religion, because that's what we have come to know on these specific things with the altar and the doors, and that you can create an illusion and spew any of your beliefs anywhere. And we see that with all religion across the board. The moment that you set up some pews and an altar.
That's a good point. And that is kind of what he's trying to do here. He's trying to illustrate you have a choice. You have a choice. when really he has controlled everything from the moment they've walked in the door.
I still don't know that I believe that either of those doors led out a back door. I think that both of those doors, belief and disbelief, still led into that dungeon where he was going to try and prove a point with the control over the women that seemed to maybe have been the women that he entrapped before.
Maybe similar missionaries. I think that was kind of the idea. And he even says to them when they show up, have you received this pamphlet? And he's like, yes, actually I have.
So there's been a few. But then also it makes you wonder, okay, elders, where have you been at it? Multiple missionaries have disappeared at this address.
It's a good point. All right, so now let's start moving into the end sequence of the movie. So Sister Paxton figures out everything that's going on. She gets down into the cellar with all the women who have been entrapped. She decides to fight back. She lashes out against him. She starts escaping, trying to make her way out. She can't find a way out. She's like a mouse trapped in a maze. All of a sudden, here comes Mr. Reed.
Mr. Reed
comes back up, stabs her. Then all of a sudden, only after she's stabbed and attacked, does Sister Barnes get up, beat him, and allows her to escape, leading to Sister Paxton being outside, and you have the whole thing with the butterfly, and then she's gone. It's kind of this weird thing. There is a concept that's explained partway through the movie that those near-death experiences are all hallucinations of the brain. And I think that's what we're seeing here. If you notice, I said it was only after Sister Paxton had been attacked that we start seeing that sequence. So I think the end sequence of this is that near-death hallucination kind of sequence. So Sister Barnes really, by the end of this point, had been dead for quite some time. There's almost no way that she would have been able to fake for that long. And I'm pretty certain here that when he was digging around in her arm, there was no way that she could have faked being dead. So I think that what we're seeing is that hopeful hallucination.
Okay. I would also like to just step back in that scene where Sister Paxton is making her way through. She has challenged Mr. Reed, and there's that scene where she comes in and he is keeping women in cages and frozen and has full control over them and treats them very foully.
Very foul.
And even in all of this that's happening, and it is freezing in that room, she stops and she offers her coat to a woman in need. And she says, I'm going to help you. So even with all of this going on, that there is still that love and compassion in her, that she wants to help everybody in this room, even as she's fighting for her own life, now at this point, mentally and physically. So just a kudos to compassion in that realm. And he still fights her. They're choosing to be here. What? No, you've kind of just forced them into this, right. Sir. Like, you are holding them here and feeding them your control. Now, yes, I would agree that I think that she may have had passed over because they went through a lot in there. And when they come back, they're going to find 3 bodies and unfortunately women chained down in the basements when they figure out this kind of house of horrors that this man has created.
If they can figure out how to unlock it.
If they can figure out how to unlock the door.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow, that's a thought.
Right?
Like, the next day, is the house just going to automatically unlock?
Yep.
And if not, the emergency response crew is trying to get in there. If anybody
ever comes back.
Right? Wow. That's a thought. Did he just lock them all in a huge metal tomb?
Potentially. Yeah.
All right, my love. So now let's go into some stuff about the movie that we liked cinematically. So for me, one of the things that I really loved about this movie is their creative use of color temperature. Now, what I mean by that, for those of you who don't know, there's a spectrum of white light that's utilized in films, it's utilized in everyday living. You have the orange tones, the more warm tones as they're called. Usually if you see a light that kind of has an orange hue to it, That's called a warm tone. Then you get into more of like the neutral kind of white, and that's called daylight white. Then you start getting into like the more fluorescent and the more blue type of light, and that's called cool tones. They utilize this very well to illustrate the journey that they go through. They start off in the relative safety in the first room, in the sitting room. There's nothing really
that makes you feel. It was like going back to my grandparents' house.
Then you go from there into the chapel. It's now more of a standard daylight kind of tone. There's nothing too cool. There's nothing too warm. It's a couple warm touches, like some of the lamps in the background. You start seeing those warm tones again. But in general, it's kind of neutral, but it is getting a little bit more dangerous. He's now starting to explain his philosophy. Then you start moving more into the basement sequences where the danger is at full level and it's very cold lighting.
Everything was very cold in those sequences, and the dripping of the water, the sounds of it that were happening, and you just got this dank. You're in the bowels of just coldness when they were in a basement is generally usually cold and dark and dank, but they really emphasize in it and bringing those cool tones into it so that you felt chilled. You felt the snow that was building outside, because it started as a cold rain, and you even see the weather has progressed torrential in the time space of the movie, and they keep showing that through sequences in the window. When the girls get there, it's cold.
It's rain.
You're in a cold rain, and there's a joke that's made that it's kind of like Noah out here for Noah's Ark, and they come inside. As the weather gets harder and scarier, the situation inside seems to be getting more intense as well.
Great point. Okay, so one of the things that I also really loved about this movie was the use of symmetry. Again, going back to the sitting room, the girls are sitting on the couch, and you have one girl on one side, one girl on the other, but also you have a lamp on each side of them. Then you have that hexagonal window in between them. Again, I think that was just tying back to how they're very different but similar. I also loved the use of symmetry in the chapel scenes, where the camera's coming from the back of the chapel. You have the pews leading up, the altar in the middle, and then the two doors. I think a lot of this was used as an intentional choice by the directors to further drive home that illusion of choice.
And everything in that scene leads right up to Mr. Reed as he stands with candles on either side, and he's at the altar. So as you come in, it's his controlled environment.
That's a good point.
Thanks.
All right, my love. So now let's start getting into some fun facts about the movie. Fun facts we weren't able to fit in really in either the plot or the cinematography of it.
Yay, fun facts.
I actually learned through this that the magic underwear that they reference in here is a real thing.
It's a real thing.
It's a real thing. To be perfectly honest with everybody, I have never been exposed really to the Mormon faith. I've had a couple friends along the way throughout the years who were Mormon. However, we never really got into the nitty gritty of it. We never really got into the details and things like that. But apparently it's a real thing. When I first saw it come up in the movie, I was like, magic underwear. It was confusing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that good films do that, where they slip something in, and then when you look into it further, it kind of sparks that, oh, I never knew that. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a good kind of intellectual expansion, if you would.
I do love the fact that even the Mormons use the term magic underwear, because I always say magic is everywhere. It was interesting because it was sacred in the movie, but also shamed in the movie. And then it also becomes the key word to push a life force into Sister Paxson to be like, I am not going down without a fight.
So another fun fact for you. In the aftermath of this movie coming out, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints have actually released several statements on how they keep their missionaries safe. The additional steps that they take, so on and so forth. One of the things that was brought up in that was they have, with technology nowadays, they have all of the missionaries share their location through their phones, through their devices. That way, even if a signal gets cut off, like it does in the film, they still see the last location where it was.
So this is the first film that you have to look at it because this is going into somebody's home. He wasn't a possessed person. He was not a...
It wasn't a supernatural influence.
It wasn't a supernatural influence. It was this is somebody that's challenging your mind and your religion as like a quote serial killer. So how would you deal with that? This was the first crossover that I've seen in religious movie versus psychopath or serial killer type, rather than religion in the priest that's going after the demonic possession of the sorts. Or what was the film that we watched? It was based around the Jewish religion. They brought
the Golem.
The Golem. So that's bringing something out of like the paranormal world. This was different. So I think that's great that the Mormon Church and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints stepped in and said, hey, we know that our missionaries are going out and doing these things. Yes, we do take precautions. This has been Hollywoodized, and that I don't think an elder would have walked away as easily as they did in the movie, because he's like, here's a pamphlet. Okay, thanks. I didn't see him. Bye. You know, going back off. But no, it was a little bit more. He was really looking for them. He was concerned. So.
All right. So one more fun fact for us before we move on. This was one of the first movies that I saw that intentionally set out in the credits, no AI was used in the creation.
What a world we're coming to.
Exactly. I think that it's interesting that we're at that point in technological development, and we're seeing it more and more in movies and in media in general, online, etc. We're seeing the use of AI so much that now it has to get called out in a movie. Now, honestly, it's a good thing when you think about the Screen Actors Guild, when you think about the Screenwriters Guild, so on and so forth. It's good to have human media and making sure that these people still have a job, still get employed, because they've been entertaining us and developing all of this entertainment for decades.
Taking on roles and personalities and all these things, and they deserve the credit for what that is.
I agree with you. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't cover AI-generated things in the future. There could be AI assets that are utilized in some of the movies that we're going to cover that, honestly, we would have no idea about. But we do believe that artists should be paid for their work, and we should be using human artists in doing this. All right, my love. So now let's get into the ratings for the movie that we're giving it.
So I get to play God and controlling the environment, and really transparent with myself and honest with myself, which is something they discuss in the movie.
Or do you only have the illusion of control?
Or do I only have the illusion of control? Ooh. Well, let's see here. Okay, what's the first category for my...
First category is cinematography.
Cinematography. I overall enjoyed it, so I'll give it a 4. 4.
There was really nothing about the cinematography of this movie that just blew me away. So honestly, I'm going to have to put this at a 3.
Okay.
It's kind of middle of the road for me. There was nothing that was like, oh, wow, you know, but there was nothing bad about it either. I think it was good. Next category. Let's get into fright factor. So I think for me, this actually comes in at a 4.
Really?
Yes. And the reason why I give it a 4 is because it's an existential fear. It's something that makes you worry about what's going to happen in the afterlife. It also kind of brings up those fears of, is everything in my life actually chosen by me, or is it chosen for me? So there is that kind of existential dread that comes into play. And while there are a couple moments of body horror throughout this, like there's a little bit of like unnervingness with the prophet, then you have the squeamishness with the digging around in the arm. It didn't have those body horror elements to push it up for me into a 5. But I think the general concept of this movie and the fright factor of it does deserve a 4, I think.
I would agree with you on the 4 in the aspect of, again, what you were saying. So I'm really just going to back up what you have said in the aspect of going in, you're having your mind tested, you're having your faith tested. And really, if you were to get out of this situation and survive it, where does that lead you in everything that you've talked about with this person in trying to survive? So I would say that yes, that the 4 is agreeable.
All right. So in general, is this a movie that we would recommend to people? Yes, no.
Yes.
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 Definitely worth a watch.
Yes.
It's definitely worth your time for at least a first watching. This is a movie I might go back and rewatch a couple of times. So for me, it might have a little bit of like good rewatchability to it.
There had also been points in this movie that you had said that you've made these arguments with other people that Mr. Reed was making with the sisters. So you've actually had similar conversations. So I think, again, you really liked that thought process and challenging, because there is so many religions and there's so many different beliefs. But are we being told to believe those things?
Therein lies the question. Well, folks, let us know in the comments below if you agree with our assessment of this film, if you liked what you saw, and if you have any recommendations for new movies for us to cover. And until next time,
Stay weird.
Hey there, and thanks for sticking around to the end to help us launch our wonderfully weird little corner of YouTube. Now, we're dropping 5 videos today to kick things off with a proper ritual. Celebration. And we plan on being back every 2 weeks with fresh horrors, twisted tales, and our own brand of dark love for the horror genre. Now, we're just a 2 weirdo team here. Everything you see is conjured up by just the 2 of us. Recording, editing, research, you name it, we do it all. So every like, comment, and subscribe really goes a long way to help keep the weirdness flowing.
So if you've enjoyed this and want to help us grow into your favorite spooky stop on YouTube, don't forget to like, share, and hit that bell like it owes you money, darling. Thanks again for supporting our channel launch. We're just getting started, and it means the underworld to us that you're here.
And
until next time,
stay